Hey, that's pretty great. 123 to 116. The Raptors defeat Victor Wembanyama, a really great Zach Collins game, a decent Keldon Johnson game, and a lot of people, it's in the title. This was Scottie Barnes, one of his finest games as an NBA player. They win in overtime. Scottie had like 17 points, a handful of assists, a block, a steal in that fourth quarter, charging the Raptors back into this. It was one of the best games I've seen him play. And on top of that, you get a career high in threes from OG Anunoby. His defense in this game was undeniably very good. Had a few laydowns from him, so you get some of that, that playmaking pop as well. Jakob Poeltl, despite playing kind of a muted role in this game, slipped in 8 of 10 from the field, had decent stretches of defense when he played as well. He gives you 16 and 10. Dennis, he was the first guy to kind of figure out the pacing of Wembanyama's help side defense. He gets to the rim fairly often, finishes with 24 and 6. I mean, and Pascal had a tough game. We'll talk about that more in depth later, but mostly to focus on the positives. The Raptors played extremely good defense in the half court. You have to be really impressed with what they were able to do there. The comeback they were able to muster up was remarkable. At half, I think their half court offensive rating was like 67 or 66. I think Blake told me, and I'm pretty sure they finished above 90 in this game. They finished at 98. So that's above last year's average for anybody who cares about that kind of stuff. But my goodness, the biggest thing to focus on late in the game, Scottie Barnes leads this charge, capped off by 3 plays, basically, I think. One of it was a pull-up 3 above the break, which tied the game at 108. One of them was when he had Jeremy Sohan in isolation, posting up, went straight to the chest, drop-stepped, dunked over him. And then the other play was when Grady Dick threw that corner-to-corner pass across the baseline, and Scottie hit it. I mean, that was incredible. What a sequence. That's remarkable basketball from Scottie. And also, like, roving on defense, I was impressed with some of the plays he made. He, like a lot of other guys, was kind of getting used to, how do I guard this Wemby guy? And Wemby was also getting more and more comfortable over the game. So some of his shots did come over Scottie because he was guarding him late and OG was guarding him throughout. I mean, you just have to be super impressed with what the Raptors brought to the game tonight. I mean, OG plays 38. He gives you, 24 points, 7 boards, 4 assists, just great defense all night against a multitude of defenders. Jakob, like I said, kind of not the hugest game for him in terms of impact, I would say, but also a guy who, when he was in the game, and especially the Raptors, they had that stretch to start the second half where, my God, OG was shooting so well in the first half that he changed how the Spurs were trying to work defensively. So the Spurs want to limit OG because he's taking those threes. And so they put Wembanyama on him. And immediately coming out of the second half, the Raptors are able to get 3 laydown passes to Jakob Poeltl. All 3 of them he converts on. Super great to see. I think it wasn't Scottie in the overtime when Pascal, he hits the 3, then he runs that side pick and roll. He gets all the way to the rim. Great play, blows the layup, terrible, but Jakob puts the ball back in, so you're still scoring on that play, thank goodness. And Jakob just kind of forming up to these drives with Wemby out of the paint. Zach Collins is stepping up, like a Keldon Johnson tag or Keldon Johnson pinching in isn't affecting anybody. And they were able to find pretty good offense to jumpstart it. And when Wemby switched on to Scottie and became Scottie's primary check, you could see Scottie really trying to feel out what's happening here. Like, how do I handle this matchup? Took like 5 or 6 dribbles on a couple different possessions, probing, seeing what's happening there. And impressive the way he applied himself. There was he made jumpers. I wrote about a big Pascal piece yesterday, but in that piece is addressing how Scottie and the Raptors offense isn't creating that many looks at the rim, and Scottie's navigating that by coming into this game shooting 67% on his pull-up mid-range shots. I think that would be a record in the NBA. Like, Kevin Durant is typically the best, and his best seasons are usually hanging around like 60, 62%. And Scottie so far this season coming into this game was 67%, which is absurd. He was 38% on his pull-up threes, which is absurd. And in this game, he had a stretch in the middle of the game, from the second quarter through maybe a bit of the third quarter where the three-point shot isn't dropping. He just keeps putting them up. And they start dropping at the most important part of the game. And he ends up at 5 for 10. He started 3 for 12 in this game. He finishes 9 for 20. For those, that's incredible. For the people who are keeping track at home, that means he went 6 of 8 down the stretch. And with a high volume of 3-point shots as well. He was 5 for 9 from the free throw line. He hit the 2 towards the end that were the most important. Well, maybe the game was over by that point in time, but they have in the fourth quarter, no T, 19 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, incredible, 6 of 8 from the floor. Incredible. That's one of my favorite performances I've ever seen from a Raptor. Wembanyama completely seals off the paint. He is an unbelievable weapon defensively. And offensively, Wembanyama had some really impressive flashes in this game and some really impressive moments, but defensively you could see shots, possessions where you've never seen a guy pass that shot up before. We saw it from Scottie. We saw it from OG. OG tried him early. It went terribly. Scottie tried him a few times. It went terribly. These guys, they tried it. And then they stopped trying it. And they started looking to do it differently. And that's where Scottie taking that matchup and probing constantly and eventually getting to the point where you're like, okay, Scottie put Wembanyama on his back foot, and he knows he can't go all the way to the rim. He just can't do that. He backpedals out, gets Wembanyama to approach, and then I think gives the ball to Shooter. Shooter immediately gives it back. Scottie's in a stampede cut, gets all the way to the rim for a bucket. Really, really impressive. That's just great basketball. That's thinking the game at a really hard level and high level, not hard level. And that's kind of picking up on some of Wembanyama's tendencies. And Wembanyama got beat so bad at the point of attack that he just he flipped his hips, looked at it, and nobody was there to help. Because when Wembanyama is your primary, the other guys are like, Wembanyama can just turn around and he'll just track him and block him at the rim. But Scottie got so much of an advantage initially that he didn't even pursue because he knew he wouldn't get there. And also, somebody asked, what did I think of that dunk on Sohan? When I watched all of Scottie's possessions from last year for a few of the pieces and videos I ended up doing, tracking his post-ups, there's this one play where people will probably remember he's working his way in against Alex Caruso and kind of uses these offbeat post-ups to turn his post-up into a runway where he eventually ends up dunking all over Nikola Vucevic. And it's a really impressive display of power, finesse coming out of the post to organize yourself correctly to explode from that point. And for Scottie in this one, taking Sohan, who, while not Wembanyama, is no slouch at the point of attack and is a pretty burly wing, hitting him in the chest, moving him under the basket, immediately gathering, quick jump, 2 hands, dunk. Super, super impressive. This game is defined by Scottie's performance. It's also defined by Wembanyama's performance. I think the most fun aspect is that you can expect Scottie to define Raptors performances for years to come. And the same thing for Wembanyama. And despite them they're not going to play each other a whole bunch being in the Eastern and Western Conference. In my mind, this will stick here, that this was round 1. Because these are 2 big stars of the future. It's really fun to see. And I'm excited to see their next one. And I'm glad Wemby's playing so much. And I'm glad Scottie's playing so much. And Scottie with his 6th game in a row with 20-plus points. Incredible. He finishes with 30 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks. This is a video game. This is insanity. And this is after having a slow start to the game. He and Pascal were both very affected by the presence of Wembanyama. And this is something I've been talking about after every game, basically, is that Scottie and Pascal within this offense are both being confronted with a lack of space. And the way Scottie has applied himself to kind of shoot over top of that and to be able to pick the spots to push in further. It's just like, it's really, really impressive the way that Scottie, with not a lot of space, that's why he started 3 for 12, and Wembanyama, figuring out how to get to the bucket, getting to the line after starting out not getting a ton of free throws, figuring out the pacing of the Spurs defense, really being able to identify where Wembanyama was on the floor. Of course, it's a new thing. They've never played against, nobody has played against a guy like Wembanyama until they've played Wembanyama. You have to get a sense of his pacing. You have to get a sense of how he likes to like roam and affect shots from the weak side. And Scottie, after struggling initially, not with Wemby as the weak side guy, yeah, but also with him as the primary, I mean, he figured it out in both cases by dominating his own guys in isolation with slower post-ups, isolations, and just kind of like mashing his way to the rim, getting to the line, but also, as I detailed earlier, using his mobility against Wembanyama. And, he has that premeditation of what he wants to do. He's tracking where Wembanyama is to win some of these possessions. It's incredible. Blake, if I can interrupt you,
Yeah, what's up?
Is there anything you want to say about this game, just to give everybody kind of like a second opinion?
Yeah, I mean, this is a giant microphone. Nothing you didn't really cover there. Obviously, this is the Scottie game, as we've kind of cascaded Scottie game on top of Scottie game on top of Scottie game here. But yeah, a ton of credit to OG too. I thought him hitting 4 threes in the first half fundamentally changed how San Antonio was defending them coming out of halftime. That opened up a lot of those Jakob dump offs early on, and then things kind of started to flow from there. I mean, career high 7 threes, fighting for a position with Wemby on that final regulation possession to open it up for Barnes to jump that inbound route and come up with the steal. Yeah, I thought those two guys stood out a ton. I don't really know what's going on with Pascal at the rim. Could have been a safer win, I guess. But yeah, I mean, look, the Spurs are a team the Raptors should beat, even though they're fun and exciting, down Devin Vassell especially. So you don't circle a tight win against the Spurs and be like, oh, that's a signature character win. But that kind of comeback, tied a franchise record with a 17-point fourth quarter comeback. Anytime you can do that, I think that's got to build spirit and buy-in in the locker room too.
And before I let you get back to writing, is there like an interesting tidbit that because you mentioned like the substitution patterns to me, but in a game like that, did you notice anything interesting that might not get talked about really?
Yeah, I mean, just it was more tinkering late in a game than you normally see. The Otto Porter going in and out with Jakob Poeltl, and then Otto Porter giving OG Anunoby a spell. Scottie Barnes getting a rest around the 4-minute mark to the 3-minute mark in the fourth quarter. I don't have an opinion on if those are good or bad, but it was more tinkering than we're used to, where end of game, it's just kind of let him play. There's also, this was earlier in the game, but Darko has a weird thing where I think he calls for the subs really late. Like I thought there were a couple times this game and last game at home where he wasn't going to be granted the substitution because they came to the table late. It's a nothing thing, but it's on my radar now, so I can't not notice it.
Yeah. Thank you, by the way, for the input. Lewis had a tweet where he said, like, yes, this is the Scottie game, of course. And of course it is. But also something is like, this was a bit of a coming out game for Darko. He really had his finger on the pulse of the game. As Blake mentioned, like lots of tinkering, lots of substitutions, and maybe ones that a lot of other coaches wouldn't make. The OG one makes sense. Like I tweeted out that OG, I was like, it's really odd that OG isn't starting this overtime. But then Keeks Kirthika, she responded and she was like, well, he was in the game from the 3-minute mark of the third quarter until the end of the fourth. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. He was getting a blow in, but usually guys don't play that long. So as much tinkering as Darko was doing and like, hey, how am I going to try and get this team back into the game? Obviously, a big part of that is Scottie grabbing hold of the game and saying, this game is mine and I will, decide where it goes, which incredible, especially with, the star power on the other side of the floor, and really good games from a handful of Spurs, not only as far as like how they operated offensively, but defensively too. And OG just plays through all of that. So every single machination on the court included OG, and except to start the fourth quarter. But that went fine enough because they ran that pin-in screen for Pascal, and the first bucket of the fourth quarter was a 3. So at least they got that while OG was off the floor. They played pretty good defense. I just remembered the Pascal foul. You can't touch a guy, I guess. That was crazy. My God, I can't believe that was called for a foul. I remember I was watching this game, seeing Pascal in the first half miss shots. He created a lot of the open looks for OG's 4 threes in the first half, and you're like, okay, there's some good process here. And defensively, I thought he was really strong against the point of attack against maybe a few of the Spurs quicker guys. And I'm like, I wonder when this game is going to turn around for him. I wonder what's going to happen here. And it did in a sense because he stopped forcing for a long time. He stopped trying to get to the rim where he was missing some of those like little push shots. He was missing some of the some of the like the layups around the rim. And you're just like, wow, I can't believe these are like dropping out. They're touching every part of the rim, popping out. And I was like, I wonder when this game turns around for him. And it never really turned around for him. At least he made the three, but then he blew the layup. That, thank goodness, went in. And then I think they held a possession in overtime for like, I think they sat at the top for 8 seconds, organizing where they wanted the guys on the weak side, bringing Jakob to the point of attack and putting Wembanyama in the screen and roll. It worked totally. Like Wembanyama got stuck on the screen, but Pascal crossed back over into the lane, went to his left and missed the layup. And you're like, there's some stuff working here. But overall, just such a tough game for Pascal. Like he got into the teeth of the defense, created some open 3-pointers, created some layups. But again, this is a guy who most people are thinking, and should be expecting higher performance. Pascal, the touch on the layup so far this year has been like, my goodness, it's been really, really bad. Like I wrote in my piece yesterday, Pascal was shooting 26% on his drives this year. And like while he's seeing a lot more help on his drives, you're seeing tonight that some of that is just like the shot is popping out, and some of it is like forcing a shot where maybe you shouldn't be. It's been a tough go for Pascal, but I'll say again for anybody who critiques of the offense, he's not shooting well enough, and there are definitely some decision making things that Pascal has to kind of get up to speed with, as most of the team does with how they want to play offense. Tonight was a good example of the Raptors finding a bit more pace, especially as the game wore on. But Pascal, some of it is just shot making that needs to be better. His role has changed a ton, but shot making, you have to hit shots. That's like an undeniable aspect of it. That's just the way this works out. I kind of want to talk about OG for a little bit. OG in this game, and I know I talked about him earlier, but he is one of the preeminent two-way players, and it's been really cool to watch him over these past few years. Like on a night where he hits his career high in threes, he does such a good job being placed all over the defense, where the Raptors need a guy to be here, where the Raptors need a guy to be here, and putting the Raptors in a position where like they always operate from a point of strength wherever OG is on the floor, whether that's offensively, he's dragging guys with his spacing. He completely changes the way that the Spurs play defense to start the half. And that really was where the game changed. Like, yes, towards the end of the third quarter, the Spurs hit a few threes and had a run against the Raptors, but that was just like 3-point variance on the other side. The Raptors' process started to become much better once they were able to move Wembanyama on the floor accordingly. And that was because of OG's proficiency and reputation as a 3-point shooter. And defensively, being moved everywhere, always being able to, there's a couple missed cues by every player every game defensively, but OG, for the most part, providing great looks as a help side guy, being really sticky at the point of attack, and then taking a bunch of those minutes against Wembanyama, keeping him away from the paint where his arms can touch anything. And what a game from him. Super impressive. I hope he's one of the guys they get after this game. It's on the road. Me and Blake and I, we're not at the game to ask questions or anything, but I hope OG is somebody who gets like a bit of time to talk about his game and to be celebrated a little bit. That would be nice to see. Dennis Schroeder, I talked a little bit about at the start, but I guess it would be good to revisit. As I mentioned at the beginning, he was the first guy who kind of had a good sense of where Wemby was, when to attack. And I actually think this was Dennis's best game attacking of the whole season. Like, I know, the Bucks game, but the Bucks point of attack defense was Damian Lillard and Malik Beasley, and they didn't care. And like they really didn't care. And Brook Lopez played like 16 minutes. Giannis was out of sorts. And yes, Schroeder got like downhill quite a bit, but tonight was a really difficult night to get downhill, especially in the half court. This was a game where Schroeder was absolutely imperative, like not his best defensive game at times, but offensively really helping get the Raptors through some of those lulls in what they were trying to do in the half court, really putting the Raptors in better positions. And I just like, man, I'm so impressed with what he's been able to bring. Some of these possessions, like he's biting off more than he can chew. That's for sure. But the Raptors offense is hitting, like it's been bad to start the year. It's hit like really low lows. And Schroeder, as a guy who is leading the team in touches, touch time, dribbles per touch, is a guy who's being asked to create a bunch. And his motion at the top and ability to penetrate is supposed to get the offense going so that more of those 0.5 basketball tenets that guide them, the quick decision making, small advantages become big advantages when you build on them and make the right decision and use a lot of movement. He's getting the drink stirred a lot. Like in this game, did Scottie succeed playing 0.5 basketball? On a couple occasions, yes, but some of it is just like he's putting up a shot and the shot making is insanity. Like if you could ask people prior to this season if they saw Scottie popping off, yes. If they saw Scottie doing wonderful things, yes. If Scottie was the future, yes. Of course, people would say that. And I put out a tweet predicting Scottie's stat line before this season, and people were very excited and made big predictions. And some people are looking great on those predictions so far. But if you would ask them how many threes he was taking and making, I don't think anybody would have guessed this. I didn't see anybody guess or expect this. His jump shot to start the year has been nuts. And whether like you can't frame this comeback in any other way than Scottie driving, winning with like, I will push through whatever I'm seeing, or I will shoot over whatever I'm seeing. And a huge part of that comeback was Scottie Barnes' jump shot. It's year 3. Before he came into this league, many people, I think the consensus, like a lot of people thought, maybe like 6 points per game rookie year. Scottie went for 15, and he scored the exact same amount of points in year 1 and year 2. But as I covered during, and a lot of people who were tapped in covered like during year 2, there's a lot of really important steps being made that will manifest in statistic changes going forward. It just looks a little bit different this year. He's got more possessions this year. He's shooting the hell out of the ball this year, and he looks great. We have a comment from Jacob who says the shot form still looks not great. The shot form changes shot to shot. Certainly it does. He's working on it. It takes thousands and thousands of repetitions to truly change your jump shot, but you can tell that it's changed from last year, and his pickup point is higher now. Like on both of his late threes that were made, his pickup point is closer to his chest. He's been a guy who his pickup point went from being like around his knees to around his hips. And especially in this game, those late threes, we're seeing like a pickup point around his chest, and he's keeping things like smoother up top. It's a shorter motion. It's a shorter move, to use a baseball term, right? They call a baseball swing like a move, don't they? Whatever. Anyway.
I didn't catch the context.
Oh, that's okay.
What you were leading in there.
So, but he's getting shorter to the shot, and that is really great for how long it takes you to get a shot up. Not that people are like contesting Scottie's shots that much. He's just shooting when it's open, which great identification. But Scottie, it's a shorter move a lot of the times. It's a shorter shot a lot of the times, and that keeps him more basic. And Scottie's a guy who, I covered this. He's had tremendous touch since he came into the league. Like incredible touch. His touch on touch shots has been extremely good. I documented all of his contested hook shots from last season. He shot 55% on contested hook shots last season. That's just like ball in hand, guy in your face, trying to find the rim in motion and figuring out a way to get it in. You have to know where your body is in space, and you have to be able to identify and like quickly put your body in line with what you want to do. And Scottie is so good at doing that. And the hope was that those talents would also manifest in his jump shot. last year, he didn't shoot well from three. In his first year, he shot better from three than people expected. And this year, he's just been insane from three. He's over 40% on 5.5 attempts a game or something. That's nuts. That is a leap. Yeah, proprioception. I try not to say it because it's a term that gets
You
dumped.
said it like 8 times watching the game.
Oh yeah, but I don't want to say it here because people make fun of it. They call me a nerd. Yes, it's proprioception and his omnidirectional movement capabilities. Yeah, but anyway, Scottie, the shot just deserves to be celebrated. Is it going to be this good forever? I hope so. I mean, every betting person would say, no, it can't possibly stay this good. He's been insane, unconscionable, but you just have to hope so. And you hope that this is something that sticks around, maybe not at this level, but as like a feature of his game. This Darko Rajakovic had the quote from earlier this season when he said, and if you get Scottie driving to the rim or you have to close out on Scottie, God help you. And it's true. Like in Wembanyama, that late dunk that Scottie got, that's exactly it. When you have to close out on Scottie Barnes, what recourse do you have? Because he's so good at reading the floor while in motion or from a standstill that if you come up, he will make the laydown pass. He could even lob it. He can make the read to the weak side corner. He could leave it short on the strong side if somebody makes that Wade cut. He can do anything with the ball, really. And to this point, he can do anything except beat a guy at the point of attack with a manipulative handle and shoot. And while he's not just completely crossing guys up and getting into the lane, that's not his game. He's beating guys up with bully drives to get down there. And when they're sinking on this stuff, he's just putting shots up and he's shooting at this point, 45% from three, 44. And I think over 40% or 39 on his pull-up threes. This is absurd. This type of performance is unconscionable in a sense. Grady Dick keeps getting open. All year has been getting open. The shots need to drop, and they will at some point. The process for Grady is like A+, A+, A+. His decision making, his motion is unbelievable. He impresses me every time I watch him when he does this stuff. He didn't make any tonight. He'll make some in the future, hopefully. He had 4 assists, though. And he also was a guy who quickly identified the Wembanyama effect, made decisions according to that, and also with his motion was able to move the Spurs defense sometimes and find shooters and find cutters. And 4 assists, it's a nice little takeaway from a game where Grady, it wasn't a big one for him, but it was a game. I thought Otto was great. Everybody celebrated the Raptors signing Otto because Otto was a guy who, when they signed him, had just been a massive part of a championship rotation. Otto, when he's healthy, is one of, as far as role-playing wings, one of the most easily objective, positive players in the NBA. He's tremendous. He shoots the three. Over the past decade of basketball, he's been one of the best rebounding wings. Statistically, eye test, however you want to frame it. And then we're looking at a guy who he plays good defense. He works well within the rotation, and he's probably watched enough. He hasn't played a bunch, but he's definitely watched enough film to know what the Raptors are trying to do and implemented himself in it. Hit threes late when teams sagged off him. When he was at the top of the arc, and the Spurs tried to play zone at some points in this game. It was just like, I'm a good shooter. I don't know what you've heard about other people. I don't know what you're trying to do against these Raptors, but I'm on the floor right now, and I'm gonna hit the shot. And he did a fantastic job. We have a question. Why is he so good at rebounds? A lot of rebounding, and Grady Dick is a really good example of this, is being able to read the ball off the rim. Yes, of course. But it's also being able to kind of rummage around established space in the post. And Otto was a guy who at Georgetown, before he even came into the NBA, was very comfortable working out of the post. He had, not necessarily with the Bulls or afterwards, was a guy who had, these cute little corner offense post packages when he played with Washington. And he's always been a player who's very comfortable with physicality. And he's got a well-built body to bang around and has for years. Maybe not the durability to go, but when he's out there, he does. And just having a great sense of opportunity. A cut, there's some hallmarks of cutting, right? Is like if you can see that's the oldest one for coaching is like if you can see the number on the back of your guy's jersey, it's time for you to cut. Different players have different processes, different coaches teach different things. But Otto has a really great sense of not only when to cut, but when there are opportunities to go after it on the glass. And then, the really easy stuff, he's big for a wing, especially when he came into the NBA, maybe less so now. And he has a long wingspan and great nose for the ball. That's the quick stuff, of course. Okay, Malachi Flynn. If anybody has any Flynn questions, feel free to ask them in the chat, but this was his best game of the season. The plus minus of 6, some of that is like you share the floor with Scottie Barnes during Scottie Barnes being an undeniable superstar run. You win some minutes, but also Malachi, like defensively, I thought the compete level was really strong in this game. He had another game where he had 3 steals. I can't remember which one that was, where, he's a little bit grittier at the point of attack, and his digs, because he did put on muscle. He is a bit bigger this year. Some of those digs with, the extra meat on the forearms, they're a little bit more compelling for a defender or the offensive player to deal with. And offensively, while the shot making wasn't incredible or anything like that, he did hit 1 3, and he moved the Raptors through a lot of their actions with pace. And none of that would have mattered if the shot making wasn't, at the end of it, certainly. But good on Malachi. This was his best game of the season. A meaningful 15-minute stretch from him in this game. And, it's not like Malachi turned this game around. Scottie did. Stars drive winning a lot. We're watching a Warriors game, but Kevon Looney is a guy who has helped the Warriors win countless games despite Steph Curry being the largest motivator, right? There's room for everybody to kind of impact the game. And, Malachi, good on you. This was a good one. Blake and I were talking about, oh, hey, there's Brody in the background. Blake and I were talking about like every player is probably going to tell their kids, their grandkids about, oh yeah, the first time I played Wembanyama, because he's going to be that level of player, almost certainly. And Malachi can say like, the first time I played Wemby, I won, and I played really well. And he probably won't show his kids or the grandkids the +6 or anything like that. But good game. Really, really happy for him. Gary also, he got back cut late by Branham. Gary had a couple possessions that were really, really effective at the point of attack, like active hands, rushing the dribble, getting the guy locked in between the knees, like really playing fantastic pressure basketball. And then sometimes he gets beat on that. Sometimes he gets beat with being a little bit toothless as far as like help side defense and that kind of stuff. But in this game, good game for Gary. Gary has been having trouble to start this season because he's being asked to shoot less catch and shoot jumpers. He's being asked to work with the ball in motion more, make more reads as a passer, dribble more often, and dribble to get other people involved, not dribble to get himself into his, his combos and stuff like that. And he's had a tough time. He's had a tough time implementing himself. This game, quicker decisions offensively, did a good job working off of Scottie late, I thought, not only as a shooter, but as a guy who's going to catch on the move and try and turn it downhill. I was impressed with a fair bit of Gary's game. So Jalen McDaniels had a 5-minute stretch. I didn't find it particularly affecting. I think I've talked about basically everybody on the team. Maybe just to revisit Scottie, just so everybody hears this stat line and keep saying it to yourself over the next few days and kind of indulge in this. I think Trey and I are going to record a podcast tomorrow, and we'll talk all about Scottie's start to the year because God bless him, he's been tremendous. But 30 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks. I talked to Nesta is in the chat right now. I talked to him at the Raptors Republic opener and like the party, and he also replied to my tweet, my prediction for, I think, Scottie's stat line. And he said 3.5 stocks. That's what he's going to average. He's doing it basically. Maybe not exactly, but he's close to doing it so far this season. The stocks are insane. If you get 3.5 stocks, you're probably going to make like an all defense team. If your team defense is good, the stats are just so compelling. And while Scottie, like, yeah, some of his help side stuff, he was a bit like he was stuck in mud at times, as everybody was, as the low man didn't get over sometimes, as many players do. And this was a tough game for the Raptors to kind of get jump started in. But holy moly, man. 3 steals, 3 blocks. Are you insane? 30 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists. It's hard to kind of square in your mind how Scottie has started this season, especially with the jump shooting. Like, he's always been a super dominant player going downhill. He's always had tremendous touch around the rim. He's always, as I wrote last year when I poured over every single pass he made, talked about advantage assists where you're giving guys really good opportunities. You're not just handing the ball off to somebody. Like, Scottie Barnes gave more. He had a higher percentage of advantage assists than like Jason Tatum. He had a higher percentage of advantage assists than Draymond Green. And those are two guys who do similar things to him on both sides of it. Like, Draymond Green is the trigger man on some sets as shooters make decisions as cutters, and he makes good reads. Scottie does that sometimes. Jason Tatum is a guy who punches into the lane and makes reads as a drive and kick guy and as laydowns. And Scottie had a higher percentage of advantage assists than both Tatum and Green. It's been incredible. This is something that, Scottie, incredible. I see a comment that says, keep underestimating him, Samson. If I am underestimating him by calling, a hot shooting start where he's like 67% from the mid-range pull-up, 40% on the, the three-point pull-up, if he does this, man, he's like one of the best shooters in the NBA. This is like Kevin Durant numbers. And if Scottie is Kevin Durant shooter plus Scottie Barnes passer plus Scottie Barnes driver plus Scottie Barnes stock king, what a start to the season. I hope I'm doing the commensurate job of celebrating him in this game because he's been unbelievable. I'm just so impressed with him. There's a comment that says, like, will Scottie have a 5x5 game this season? I think Nicholas Batum has had one recently from the wing position. I don't even know anybody else who has recently. Just Nicholas Batum sticks out in my head. Scottie's definitely a guy who could. I don't think OG has ever had a 5x5. They're really rare. But Scottie playing low in the defense, you see a game where he goes 3 steals, 3 blocks. There's no reason why some game over the course of his career he gets to 5 and 5 for 5 steals, 5 blocks. And also, he's going to sleepwalk to 5 assists over a lot of his career. He's going to sleepwalk to 5 boards over a lot of his career. So it's definitely something that is a possibility for him. We have another question about talk about the call on Pascal at the end. We did talk about it for a little bit, so I don't want to kind of like rehash that for the audio listeners tomorrow morning or anything like that. Nurkic is also a 5x5 guy. Yeah. We have a lot of people talking about the free throws. Yeah, that's tough, man. The Raptors, they shot 61.5% from the free throw line. They haven't been like a tremendous free throw shooting team for a little while. And that's just what happens. Like, yes, a lot of Pascal used to be like an 80% guy, but he's more so like a 76, 77% guy. I think Scottie shot 77% last season. OG usually hangs around like 77, 80%. But the big difference, the reason why, like, on some nights they're going to shoot like 80, 90%. And on some nights, I guess they're going to shoot a lot better. Tonight, missed free throws, yeah, but luckily it didn't come back to hurt them. And honestly, like in this game, OG misses 3, Scottie misses 4, Jakob missed both of his. It's just kind of an accumulation. It's like Scottie took the most free throws. He shot 63%, and that kind of dictates a lot of the percentages, the outcome. And does anybody really want to get on Scottie about his free throw shooting in this game? Should that be where the focus lies? Definitely not. I'm sure people want to give, Pascal like a piece of their mind after a tough performance, but the free throw shooting, Pascal shot 3 of 3. He shot 2 of 12 overall, of course. He missed, I think, 5 layups in this game. And a couple of them are like, oh man, it touched every part of the rim. A couple of them, you're like, that was a bit too tough of a shot to throw up there. And a couple of them, you're like, there's no excuse for missing that. That's really tough. That's not something you just expect those to go in. Pascal has been an elite finisher at the rim for years and years and years. You expect that to come around. The driving frequency is down. He's seeing more help on his drives than ever. But when he does get all the way there, he's just not at all hitting the shots that he needs to. That's a classic Fred stat. Yeah, I talked about this in the piece I wrote yesterday where the Raptors spacing is worse this season. And, I really mentioned that Scottie has done such a good job of, with this cramped spacing, obviously shooting an insane amount on his pull-up mid-range jumpers, shooting an insane amount on his three-point shots, like incredible play. And the opposite side of that is both Pascal and Scottie are affected negatively by this spacing. And right now, Scottie is just like unbelievable, unconscionable superstar. And spacing doesn't seem to matter to him because he's making shots from everywhere on high volume and doing it like at an incredible pace. Here's an interesting question from Phoenix Plazy. Are we sure Pascal's athleticism isn't declining? I haven't thought about this that much. I think that's probably something that will factor into the conversation around him going forward. That's like there's a possibility, I think, that Pascal isn't as explosive. He's had 2 groin injuries that lingered for a long time. The groin saps a lot of that. Like DeMar DeRozan was never like a bursty athlete, but DeMar was a guy who took a long time after his adductor injury. Groin stuff does stick around for guys for a long time. And Pascal had a big groin injury that affected him. And he's is he 29 right now and 30 soon? Yeah, I think he's 30 in like December or something. Maybe that's part of the conversation going forward. But also there's like a lot of stuff that goes into it. If anybody wants to, now some people might not be that interested in it. As far as like, if you want to look at the statistics and like some of the film on what's happening with Pascal, you can go read it on raptorsrepublic.com. Man, Scottie, though, is defining the Raptors in this game and going forward. And everybody should be like completely overwhelmed and overjoyed at this. Like, as you know, I wrote and I focused in on what's happening with Pascal, but that's because that's an interesting thing that's happening right now. There are articles like every day. We talk about Scottie more than any other player, and he defines the Raptors going forward. Why? Because he appears to be making a superstar leap. This is what defines teams. When you have a superstar, and in this case on a rookie contract, that's kind of what defines teams and makes them think like, okay, we go for it now. We build around this guy's skill set. What does this look like? What do they do? How can we maximize them? And the Raptors, they haven't built around a superstar in a long time, right? Like Kyle Lowry was underrated forever, gave you like all NBA impact every year, and he was always underpaid. So the Raptors had money to give like a lot of different contracts out and to layer the team with good role players. And DeMar DeRozan was doing a fantastic job of filling up the scoring side of things and eventually the playmaking side of things. But if Scottie Barnes makes this leap now, this would be unprecedented for the Raptors since Vince Carter. Like it really would. Scottie, what he's doing currently, you hope everything sticks around, the shooting, the efficiency, all this kind of stuff. And if it does, then this is just Vince Carter and maybe even like a little bit more impressive. I was like, 3 years old when Vince Carter got drafted, so I can't really say. What do you think, Blake? How was the start of the Vince?
Oh, I tagged in late in the Vince era. I wasn't. Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have.
I got in the Vince is unhappy era.
Good. So you didn't get to enjoy Vince all that much. Maybe only through highlights. Well, so basically, my idea is this is probably either like close to Vince, maybe not in terms of like highlights, human highlight reel, because I think I wrote about Vince and the Raptors. They're visiting attendance was always extremely high. I think they had the number 1 visiting attendance in the league when Vince was playing on them. So like Vince just being on the Raptors meant that when the Raptors went elsewhere, not even Toronto, the Raptors would sell huge numbers because people wanted to see Vince. Now, maybe Scottie's not that compelling for fans, But as far as like impact, I'm sure he could be at Vince or get above Vince if he keeps playing like this. Vince, I don't know if he's ever had on his rookie contract as good a start to the year statistically as to what Scottie's currently doing. So if this jump from Scottie is real, sticks around, and is this good, the 7-game stretch becomes 82 games, then yes, the Raptors are in unprecedented history for the franchise. They've won. They've had like years and years of being the smartest front office. They had a stretch where that was the case, where they won every trade, had huge returns on the 27th overall pick, the 20th overall pick, the 46th overall pick, an undrafted free agent. They did all that stuff and they hit on it. But if Scottie is this good going forward, then the franchise is in unprecedented, just in an unprecedented area. So something that's cool to see. I'm looking forward to, oh my God, Gary Payton Jr. just had an insane alley-oop. Sorry, I couldn't not respond to that. That feels like a podcast, yeah. I think we talked about mostly everything. Maybe just that I'm super excited to keep watching Wembanyama. And as I said at the top of the podcast, I can't wait to see more of Scottie versus Wemby, because Wemby is probably going to watch the film too. And the next time we see them play, I really hope we get to see Wemby on Scottie earlier. And I hope that for years we get to see them go at it, because Scottie is a guy who has never shied away from any matchup, and he attacks everything with like just extremely abundant boldness. And he and Wemby, game 1 was awesome. I'm looking forward to game 2, game 3, game 4, game 5, all that kind of stuff. What a fun game. And, thank you to Scottie for making it so compelling and turning on the afterburners to deliver a W for the Raptors. Superstar stuff. Just awesome. Thanks to everybody for listening. Chat, as always, thank you for the insightful commentary. Thank you for engaging. Thanks for hopping in after a game. It's always nice. There's a lot more energy to kind of bounce off of. Thank you for hopping on. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. And so if you want to subscribe, feel free to do so. We do video essays, we do podcasts, and a lot of people seem to like them. That's something we do here. Like the video, because I think it's good for the algorithm as far as, making other people watch this. And hopefully other people watch this and are like, I like what this guy says. I'll stick around for more. That's kind of, I guess, the approach to this kind of thing. So from myself, from Blake, of course, thank you to everybody for hopping in, listening, to the people listening on their walk in the morning or just late at night, whatever it needs to be. Thanks for hopping in. It's been a blast. Okay, what do you got into this in the morning or at night? Have a blessed day and goodbye.